The Bible in Basic English. The First Book of Kings. Chapter 1. Now King David was old and far on in years, and though they put covers over him, his body was cold. So his servants said to him, "Let search be made for a young virgin for my lord the king, to take care of him and be waiting on him, and you may take her in your arms, and so my lord the king will be warm." So after searching through all the land of Israel for a fair young girl, they saw Abishag the Shunammite, and took her to the king. Now she was very beautiful, and she took care of the king, waiting on him at all times, but the king had no connection with her. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, lifting himself up in pride, said, "I will become king," and he made ready his carriages of war and his horsemen, with 50 runners to go before him. Now all his life his father had never gone against him or said to him, "Why have you done so?" And he was a very good-looking man, and younger than Absalom, and he had talked with Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they were on his side and gave him their support. But Zadok the priest, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and Nathan the prophet, and Shimei and Ray, and David's men of war did not take the side of Adonijah. Then Adonijah put to death sheep and oxen and fat beasts by the stone of Zoheleth, by En-Rogel, and he sent for all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah, the king's servants, to come to him. But he did not send for Nathan the prophet and Benaiah and the other men of war and Solomon his brother. Then Nathan said to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, "Has it not come to your ears that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has made himself king without the knowledge of David our Lord? So now, let me make a suggestion, so that you may keep your life safe and the life of your son Solomon. Come now, go to King David and say to him, 'Did you not, O my lord, take an oath to me, your servant, saying, Truly Solomon your son will be king after me, seated on the seat of my kingdom? Why then is Adonijah acting as king? And while you are still talking there with the king, see, I will come in after you and say that your story is true.'" Then Bathsheba went into the king's room. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was waiting on him. And Bathsheba went down on her face on the earth before the king, giving him honor. And he said, "What is your desire?" And she said to him, "My lord, you took an oath by the Lord your God and gave your word to your servant, saying, Truly, Solomon your son will be king after me, seated on the seat of my kingdom. And now, see, Adonijah has made himself king without my lord's knowledge, and has put to death oxen and fat beasts and sheep in great numbers, and has sent for all the sons of the king, and Abiathar the priest, and Joab, the captain of the army, but he has not sent for Solomon your servant. And now, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, waiting for you to say who is to take the place of my lord the king after him. For as things are, it will come about, when my lord the king is sleeping with his fathers, that I and Solomon my son will be made outlaws." And while she was still talking with the king, Nathan the prophet came in. And they said to the king, "Here is Nathan the prophet." And when he came in before the king, he went down on his face on the earth. And Nathan said, "O my lord king, have you said, Adonijah is to be king after me, seated on the seat of my kingdom? Because today he has gone down and has put to death oxen and fat beasts and sheep in great numbers, and has sent for all the king's sons to come to him, with the captains of the army and Abiathar the priest, and they are feasting before him and crying, Long life to King Adonijah. But me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon, he is not sent for. Has this thing been done by my lord the king, without giving word to your servants who was to be placed on my lord the king's seat after him?" Then King David in answer said, "Send for Bathsheba to come to me." And she came in and took her place before the king. And the king took an oath, and said, "By the living Lord, who has been my savior from all my troubles, as I took an oath to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, saying, Certainly Solomon your son will become king after me, seated on my seat in my place, so will I do this day." Then Bathsheba went down on her face on the earth before the king, giving him honor, and said, "May my lord King David go on living forever." And King David said, "Send for Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada." And they came before the king. And the king said to them, "Take with you the servants of your lord, and put Solomon my son on my beast, yes, mine, and take him down to Gihon, and there let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet put the holy oil on him to make him king over Israel, and sounding the horn say, Long life to King Solomon. Then come up after him, and he will come in and take his place on the seat of my kingdom. For he is to be king in my place, and I have given orders that he is to be ruler over Israel and over Judah." And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, answering the king, said, "So be it, and may the Lord, the God of my lord the king, say so. As the Lord has been with my lord the king, even so may he be with Solomon, and make the seat of his authority greater than that of my lord King David." So Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and the Cherethites and the Pelethites, went down and put Solomon on King David's beast and took him to Gihon. And Zadok the priest took the vessel of oil out of the tent, and put the holy oil on Solomon. And when the horn was sounded, all the people said, "Long life to King Solomon." And all the people came up after him, piping with pipes, and they were glad with great joy, so that the earth was shaking with the sound. And it came to the ears of Adonijah and all the guests who were with him, when the meal was ended. And Joab, hearing the sound of the horn, said, "What is the reason of this noise, as if the town was worked up?" And while the words were on his lips, Jonathan, the son of Abiathar the priest, came, and Adonijah said, "Come in, for you are a man of good faith, and the news which you have for us will be good." And Jonathan, answering, said to Adonijah, "Not so, but our lord King David has made Solomon king." And he sent with him Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and the Cherethites and the Pelethites. And they put him on the king's beast, and Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet put the holy oil on him and made him king in Gihon. And they came back from there with joy, and the town was all worked up. This is the noise which has come to your ears. And now Solomon is seated on the seat of the kingdom. And the king's servants came to our lord King David, blessing him and saying, "May God make the name of Solomon better than your name, and the seat of his authority greater than your seat." And the king was bent low in worship on his bed. Then the king said, "May the God of Israel be praised, who has given one of my seed to be king in my place this day, and has let my eyes see it." And all the guests of Adonijah got up in fear and went away, every man to his place. And Adonijah himself was full of fear because of Solomon, and he got up and went to the altar, and put his hands on its horns. And they gave Solomon word of it, saying, "See, Adonijah goes in such fear of King Solomon, that he has put his hands on the horns of the altar, saying, Let King Solomon first give me his oath that he will not put his servant to death with the sword." And Solomon said, "If he is seen to be a man of good faith, not a hair of him will be touched, but if any wrongdoing is seen in him, he is to be put to death." So King Solomon sent, and they took him down from the altar. And he came and gave honor to King Solomon, and Solomon said to him, "Go to your house." Chapter 2. Now the time of David's death came near, and he gave orders to Solomon his son, saying, "I am going the way of all the earth, so be strong and be a man, and keep the orders of the Lord your God, walking in his ways, keeping his laws and his orders and his rules and his words, as they are recorded in the law of Moses, so that you may do well in all you do and wherever you go, so that the Lord may give effect to what he said of me. If your children give attention to their ways, living uprightly before me with all their heart and their soul, you will never be without a man to be king in Israel." Now you have knowledge of what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, and to the two captains of the army of Israel, Abner, the son of Ner, and Amasa, the son of Jether, whom he put to death, taking payment for the blood of war in time of peace, and making the band of my clothing and the shoes on my feet red with the blood of one put to death without cause. So be guided by your wisdom, and let not his white head go down to the underworld in peace. But be good to the sons of Barzillai the Gileadite, and let them be guests at your table, for so they came to me when I went in flight from Absalom your brother. Now you have with you Shimei, the son of Gera the Benjamite of Bahurim, who put a bitter curse on me on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to see me at Jordan, and I gave him my oath by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death by the sword. But do not let him be free from punishment, for you are a wise man, and it will be clear to you what you have to do with him. See that his white head goes down to the underworld in blood. Then David went to rest with his fathers, and his body was put into the earth in the town of David. David was king over Israel for 40 years. For 7 years he was king in Hebron, and for 33 years in Jerusalem. And Solomon took his place on the seat of David his father, and his kingdom was made safe and strong. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. And she said, Come you in peace? And he said, Yes, in peace. Then he said, I have something to say to you. And she said, Say on. And he said, You saw how the kingdom was mine, and all Israel had the idea that I would be their king. But now the kingdom is turned about, and has become my brother's, for it was given to him by the Lord. Now I have one request to make to you, and do not say, No, to me. And she said to him, Say on. Then he said, Will you go to Solomon the king, for he will not say, No, to you, and put before him my request that he will give me Abishag the Shunammite for a wife? And Bathsheba said, Good. I will make your request to the king. So Bathsheba went to King Solomon to have talk with him on Adonijah's account. And the king got up to come to her, and went down low to the earth before her. Then he took his place on the king's seat and had a seat made ready for the king's mother, and she took her place at his right hand. Then she said, I have one small request to make to you. Do not say, No, to me. And the king said, Say on, my mother, for I will not say, No, to you. And she said, Let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah your brother for a wife. Then King Solomon made answer and said to his mother, Why are you requesting me to give Abishag the Shunammite to Adonijah? Take the kingdom for him in addition, for he is my older brother, and Abiathar the priest and Joab, the son of Zeruiah, are on his side. Then King Solomon took an oath by the Lord, saying, May God's punishment be on me if Adonijah does not give payment for these words with his life. Now by the living Lord, who has given me my place on the seat of David my father, and made me one of the line of kings, as he gave me his word, truly Adonijah will be put to death this day. And King Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he made an attack on him and put him to death. And to Abiathar the priest the king said, Go to Anathoth, to your fields, for death would be your right reward. But I will not put you to death now, because you took up the ark of the Lord God before David my father, and you were with him in all his troubles. So Solomon let Abiathar be priest no longer, so that he might make the word of the Lord come true which he said about the sons of Eli and Shiloh. And news of this came to Joab, for Joab had been one of Adonijah's supporters, though he had not been on Absalom's side. Then Joab went in flight to the tent of the Lord, and put his hands on the horns of the altar. And they said to King Solomon, Joab has gone in flight to the tent of the Lord and is by the altar. Then Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, saying, Go, make an attack on him. And Benaiah came to the tent of the Lord and said to him, The king says, Come out. And he said, No, but let death come to me here. And Benaiah went back to the king and gave him word of the answer which Joab had given. And the king said, Do as he has said and make an attack on him there, and put his body into the earth, so that you may take away from me and from my family the blood of one put to death by Joab without cause. And the Lord will send back his blood on his head, because of the attack he made on 2 men more upright and better than himself, putting them to the sword without my father's knowledge, even Abner, the son of Ner, captain of the army of Israel, and Amasa, the son of Jether, captain of the army of Judah. So their blood will be on the head of Joab, and on the head of his seed forever. But for David and his seed and his family and the seat of his kingdom, there will be peace forever from the Lord. So Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, went up, and falling on him, put him to death. And his body was put to rest in his house in the wasteland. And the king put Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, in his place over the army, and Zadok the priest he put in the place of Abiathar. Then the king sent for Shimei, and said to him, Make a house for yourself in Jerusalem and keep there and go to no other place. For be certain that on the day when you go out and go over the stream Kidron, death will overtake you, and your blood will be on your head. And Shimei said to the king, Very well. As my lord the king has said, so will your servant do. And for a long time Shimei went on living in Jerusalem. But after 3 years, 2 of the servants of Shimei went in flight to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. And word was given to Shimei that his servants had gone to Gath. Then Shimei got up, and making ready his ass, he went to Gath, to Achish, in search of his servants, and he sent and got them from Gath. And news was given to Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and have come back again. Then the king sent for Shimei, and said to him, Did I not make you take an oath by the Lord, protesting to you and saying, Be certain that on the day when you go out from here, wherever you go, death will overtake you? And you said to me, Very well. Why then have you not kept the oath of the Lord and the order which I gave you? And the king said to Shimei, You have knowledge of all the evil which you did to David my father, and now the Lord has sent back your evil on yourself. But a blessing will be on King Solomon, and the kingdom of David will keep its place before the Lord forever. So the king gave orders to Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and, falling on him, put him to death. And Solomon's authority over the kingdom was complete. Chapter 3. Solomon became the son-in-law of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter as his wife, keeping her in the town of David, till the house he was building for himself, and the house of the Lord and the wall round Jerusalem, were complete. But all this time the people were making their offerings in the high places, because no house had been put up to the name of the Lord till those days. And Solomon, in his love for the Lord, kept the laws of David his father. But he made offerings and let them go up in smoke on the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to make an offering there, because that was the chief high place. It was Solomon's way to make 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. In Gibeon, Solomon had a vision of the Lord in a dream by night, and God said to him, Say what I am to give you. And Solomon said, Great was your mercy to David my father, as his life before you was true and upright, and his heart was true to you, and you have kept for him this greatest mercy, a son to take his place this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in the place of David my father, and I am only a young boy, with no knowledge of how to go out or come in. And your servant has round him the people of your selection, a people so great that they may not be numbered, and no account of them may be given. Give your servant, then, a wise heart for judging your people, able to see what is good and what evil, for who is able to be the judge of this great people? Now these words and Solomon's request were pleasing to the Lord, and God said to him, Because your request is for this thing, and not for long life for yourself or for wealth or for the destruction of your haters, but for wisdom to be a judge of causes, I have done as you said. I have given you a wise and far-seeing heart, so that there has never been your equal in the past, and never will there be any like you in the future. And with this I have given you what you made no request for, wealth and honor, so that no king was ever your equal. And if you go on in my ways, keeping my laws and my orders as your father David did, I will give you a long life. And Solomon, awakening, saw that it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem, where he went before the ark of the agreement of the Lord, offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, and he made a feast for all his servants. Then 2 loose women of the town came and took their places before the king, and one of them said, O my lord, I and this woman are living in the same house, and I gave birth to a child by her side in the house. And 3 days after the birth of my child, this woman had a child. We were together, no other person was with us in the house but we two only. In the night, This woman, sleeping on her child, was the cause of its death. And she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was sleeping, and she took it in her arms and put her dead child in my arms. And when I got up to give my child the breast, I saw that it was dead, but in the morning, looking at it with care, I saw that it was not my son. And the other woman said, No, but the living child is my son and the dead one yours. But the first said, No, the dead child is your son and the living one mine. So they kept on talking before the king. Then the king said, One says, The living child is my son, and yours is the dead, and the other says, Not so, but your son is the dead one and mine is the living. Then he said, Get me a sword. So they went and put a sword before the king, and the king said, Let the living child be cut in two and one half given to one woman and one to the other. Then the mother of the living child came forward, for her heart went out to her son, and she said, O my lord, give her the child. Do not on any account put it to death. But the other woman said, It will not be mine or yours, let it be cut in two. Then the king made answer and said, Give her the child, and do not put it to death. She is the mother of it. And news of this decision which the king had made went through all Israel, and they had fear of the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to give decisions. Chapter 4. Now Solomon was king over all Israel. And these were his chief men: Azariah, the son of Zadok, was the priest; Elihoaph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, were scribes; Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was the recorder; Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was head of the army; Zadok and Abiathar were priests; Azariah, the son of Nathan, was over those in authority in the different divisions of the country; Zabud, the son of Nathan, was priest and the king's friend; Ahisha was controller of the king's house; Adoniram, the son of Abda, was overseer of the forced work. And Solomon put 12 overseers over all Israel, to be responsible for the stores needed for the king and those of his house. Every man was responsible for 1 month in the year. And these are their names: the son of Hur, in the hill country of Ephraim; the son of Deker in Makers and Shaalbim and Beth Shemesh and El Beth Hanan; the son of Hest in Arabah, Soko and all the land of Hepher were under his control; the son of Abinadab in all Naphthdor; his wife was Taphath, the daughter of Solomon; Bana, the son of Ahilud, in Tanakh and Megiddo, and all Bethshean which is by the side of Zarethan, under Jezreel, from Bethshean to Abel Meholah, as far as the far side of Jochmeam; the son of Geber in Ramoth Gilead, he had the towns of Yair, the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead, and the country of Argob, which is in Bashan, 60 great towns with walls and locks of brass; Ahinadab, the son of Edo, in Mahanaim; Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He took Basemath, the daughter of Solomon, as his wife; Bana, the son of Hushai, in Asher and Aloth; Jehoshaphat, the son of Peruah, in Issachar; Shimei, the son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, the son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites; and Og, king of Bashan. And one overseer had authority over all the overseers who were in the land. Judah and Israel were as great in number as the sand by the seaside, and they took their food and drink with joy in their hearts. And Solomon was a ruler over all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines, and as far as the edge of Egypt. Men gave him offerings and were his servants all the days of his life. And the amount of Solomon's food for 1 day was 30 measures of crushed grain and 60 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen and 20 oxen from the fields, and 100 sheep, in addition to harts and gazelles and roes and fat fowls. For he had authority over all the country on this side of the river, from Tifsa to Gaza, over all the kings on this side of the river, and he had peace round him on every side. So Judah and Israel were living safely, every man under his vine and his fig tree, from Dan as far as Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had 4,000 boxed-off spaces for horses for his carriages, and 12,000 horsemen. And those overseers, every man in his month, saw that food was produced for Solomon and all his guests. They took care that nothing was overlooked. And they took grain and dry grass for the horses and the carriage horses, to the right place, every man as he was ordered. And God gave Solomon a great store of wisdom and good sense, and a mind of wide range, as wide as the sand by the seaside. And Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, even than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman and Calcol and Dada, the sons of Mahol, and he had a great name among all the nations round about. He was the maker of 3,000 wise sayings, and of songs to the number of 1,005. He made sayings about all plants, from the cedar in Lebanon to the hyssop hanging on the wall, and about all beasts and birds and fishes and the small things of the earth. People came from every nation to give ear to the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had word of his wisdom. Chapter 5. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, hearing that Solomon had been made king in place of his father, sent his servants to him, for Hiram had ever been a friend to David. And Solomon sent back word to Hiram, saying, You have knowledge that David my father was not able to make a house for the name of the Lord his God, because of the wars which were round him on every side, till the Lord put all those who were against him under his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. No one is making trouble, and no evil is taking place. And so it is my purpose to make a house for the name of the Lord my God, as he said to David my father, Your son, whom I will make king in your place, will be the builder of a house for my name. So now, will you have cedar trees from Lebanon cut down for me? And my servants will be with your servants, and I will give you payment for your servants at whatever rate you say, for it is common knowledge that we have no such woodcutters among us as the men of Zidon. And these words of Solomon made Hiram glad, and he said, Now may the Lord be praised who has given to David a wise son to be king over this great people. Then Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, The words you sent have been given to me. I will do all your desire in the question of cedar wood and cypress wood. My men will take them down from Lebanon to the sea, where I will have them corded together to go by sea to whatever place you say, and I will have them cut up there so that you may take them away. As for payment, it will be enough if you give me food for my people. So Hiram gave Solomon all the cedar wood and cypress wood he had need of, and Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of grain, as food for his people, and 20 measures of clear oil. This he did every year. Now the Lord had given Solomon wisdom, as he had said to him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and they made an agreement together. Then King Solomon got together men for the forced work through all Israel, 30,000 men in number, and sent them to Lebanon in bands of 10,000 every month. For a month they were working in Lebanon and for 2 months in their country, and Adoniram was in control of them. Then he had 70,000 for the work of transport, and 80,000 stonecutters in the mountains, in addition to the chiefs of the responsible men put by Solomon to oversee the work, 3,300 in authority over the workmen. By the king's orders great stones of high price, were cut out, so that the base of the house might be made of squared stone. Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did the work of cutting them, and put edges on them, and got the wood and the stone ready for the building of the house. Chapter 6. In the 480th year after the children of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year that Solomon was king of Israel, in the month Siv, which is the 2nd month, the building of the Lord's house was started. The house which Solomon made for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide and 30 cubits high. The covered way before the temple of the house was 20 cubits long, as wide as the house, and 10 cubits wide in front of the house. And for the house he made windows, with network across, and against the walls all round, and against the walls of the temple and of the inmost room, he put up wings, with side rooms all round, the lowest line of them being 5 cubits wide, the middle 6 cubits wide and the third 7 cubits, for there was a space all round the outside walls of the house, so that the boards supporting the rooms did not have to be fixed in the walls of the house. And the stones used in the building of the house were squared at the place where they were cut out. There was no sound of hammer or axe or any iron instrument while they were building the house. The door to the lowest side rooms was in the right side of the house, and they went up by twisting steps into the middle rooms, and from the middle into the third. So he put up the house and made it complete, roofing it with boards of cedar wood. And he put up the line of side rooms against the walls of the house, 15 cubits high, resting against the house on boards of cedar wood. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, About this house which you are building, if you will keep my laws and give effect to my decisions and be guided by my rules, I will give effect to my word which I gave to David your father. And I will be ever among the children of Israel, and will not go away from my people. So Solomon made the building of the house complete. The walls of the house were covered inside with cedar wood boards. From the floor to the roof of the house they were covered inside with wood, and the floor was covered with boards of cypress wood. And at the back of the house a further space of 20 cubits was shut in with boards of cedar wood, for the inmost room. And the house, that is, the temple, in front of the holy place was 40 cubits long. All of the inside of the house was cedar wood, ornamented with designs of buds and flowers. No stonework was to be seen inside. And he made ready an inmost room in the middle of the house, in which to put the ark of the agreement of the Lord. And the inmost room was 20 cubits square and 20 cubits high, plated over with clear gold. And he made an altar of cedar wood, plating it with gold. Solomon had all the inside of the house covered with gold, and he put chains of gold across in front of the inmost room, which itself was covered with gold. Plates of gold were put all through the house till it was covered completely, and the altar in the inmost room was all covered with gold. In the inmost room he made 2 winged beings of olive wood, 10 cubits high, with outstretched wings 5 cubits wide. The distance from the edge of one wing to the edge of the other was 10 cubits. The 2 winged ones were 10 cubits high, of the same size and form. The 2 of them were 10 cubits high. These were placed inside the inner house, their outstretched wings touching the walls of the house, one touching one wall and one the other, while their other wings were touching in the middle. These winged ones were plated over with gold. And all the walls of the house inside and out were ornamented with forms of winged ones and palm trees and open flowers. And the floor of the house was covered with gold, inside and out. For the way into the inmost room he made doors of olive wood, the arch and the door supports forming a 5-sided opening. On the olive wood doors were cut designs of winged ones and palm trees and open flowers, all of them, with the doors, plated with gold. Then he made pillars of olive wood for the way into the temple. The pillars were square, and 2 folding doors of cypress wood, with 2 leaves. These were ornamented with designs of winged ones and palm trees and open flowers, plated over with gold. And the inner space was walled with 3 lines of squared stones and a line of cedar wood boards. In the 4th year the base of the house was put in its place, in the month Ziv. And in the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, the building of the house was complete in every detail, as it had been designed. So he was 7 years building it. Chapter 7. Solomon was 13 years building a house for himself till it was complete. And he made the house of the woods of Lebanon, which was 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high, resting on 4 lines of cedar wood pillars with cedar wood supports on the pillars. And it was covered with cedar over the 45 supports which were on the pillars, 15 in a line. There were 3 lines of window frames, window facing window in every line, and all the doors and windows had square frames, with the windows facing one another in 3 lines. And he made a covered room of pillars, 50 cubits long and 30 cubits wide, and with steps before it. Then he made a covered room for his high seat when he gave decisions. This was the covered room of judging. It was covered with cedar wood from floor to roof. And the house for his living place. The other open square in the covered room was made in the same way. And then he made a house like it for Pharaoh's daughter, whom Solomon had taken as his wife. All these buildings were made, inside and out, from base to crowning stone, and outside to the great walled square, of highly priced stone, cut to different sizes with cutting instruments. And the base was of great masses of highly priced stone, some 10 cubits and some 8 cubits square. Overhead were highly priced stones cut to measure, and cedar wood. The great outer square all round was walled with 3 lines of squared stones and a line of cedar wood boards, round about the open square inside the house of the Lord and the covered room of the king's house. Then King Solomon sent and got Hiram from Tyre. He was the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass. He was full of wisdom and knowledge and an expert worker in brass. He came to King Solomon and did all his work for him. He it was who made the 2 brass pillars. The first pillar was 18 cubits high, and a line of 12 cubits went round it, and the second was the same. And he made the 2 crowns to be put on the tops of the pillars, of brass made soft in the fire. The crowns were 5 cubits high. There were nets of open work for the crowns on the tops of the pillars, a net of open work for one and a net of open work for the other. And he made ornaments of apples, and 2 lines of apples all round over the network, covering the crowns of the pillars, the 2 crowns in the same way. The crowns on the tops of the pillars were ornamented with a design of flowers, and were 4 cubits across. And there were crowns on the 2 pillars near the round part by the network, and there were 200 apples in lines round every crown. He put up the pillars at the doorway of the temple, naming the one on the right Jachin, and that on the left Boaz. The tops of the pillars had a design of flowers, and the work of making the pillars was complete. And he made a great metal water vessel 10 cubits across from edge to edge, 5 cubits high and 30 cubits round. And under the edge of it, circling it all round for 10 cubits, were 2 lines of flower buds, made together with it from liquid metal. It was supported on 12 oxen, with their back parts turned to the middle of it, 3 of them facing to the north, 3 to the west, 3 to the south, and 3 to the east. The vessel was resting on top of them. It was as thick as a man's open hand, and was curved like the edge of a cup, like the flower of a lily. It would take 2,000 baths. And he made 10 wheeled bases of brass, every one 4 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. And the bases were made in this way: their sides were square, fixed in a framework, and on the square sides, between the frames were lions, oxen, and winged ones, and the same on the frame, and over and under the lions and the oxen and the winged ones were steps. Every base had 4 wheels of brass, turning on brass rods, and their 4 angles had angle plates under them. The angle plates under the base were of metal, and there were ornaments at the side of every one. The mouth of it inside the angle plate was 1 cubit across. It was round like a pillar, 1.5 cubits across. It had designs cut on it. The sides were square, not round. The 4 wheels were under the frames, and the rods on which the wheels were fixed were in the base. The wheels were 1.5 cubits high. The wheels were made like carriage wheels. The rods on which they were fixed, the parts forming their edges, their rods and the middle points of them, were all formed out of liquid metal. And there were 4 angle plates at the 4 angles of every base, forming part of the structure of the base. And at the top of the base there was a round vessel, 1/2 cubit high. In the spaces of the flat sides and on the frames of them, he made designs of winged ones, lions, and palm trees, with ornamented edges all round. All the 10 bases were made in this way, after the same design, of the same size and form. And he made 10 brass washing vessels, every one taking 40 baths, and measuring 4 cubits. 1 vessel was placed on every one of the 10 bases. And he put the bases by the house, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And he put the great water vessel on the right side of the house, to the east, facing south. And Hiram made the pots and spades and the basins. So Hiram came to the end of all the work he did for King Solomon in the house of the Lord, the 2 pillars and the 2 cups of the crowns which were on the tops of the 2 pillars, and the network covering the 2 cups of the crowns on the tops of the pillars, and the 400 apples for the network, 2 lines of apples for every network, covering the 2 cups of the crowns on the pillars, and the 10 bases, with the 10 washing vessels on them, and the great water vessel, with the 12 oxen under it, and the pots and the spades and the basins, all the vessels which Hiram made for King Solomon, for the house of the Lord, were of polished brass. He made them of liquid metal in the lowland of Jordan, at the way across the river, at Adamah, between Succoth and Zarethan. The weight of all these vessels was not measured, because there was such a number of them, it was not possible to get the weight of the brass. And Solomon had all the vessels made for use in the house of the Lord, the altar of gold and the gold table on which the holy bread was placed, and the supports for the lights, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left before the inmost room, of clear gold, and the flowers and the lights and all the instruments of gold, and the cups and the scissors and the basins and the spoons and the fire trays, all of gold, and the pins on which the doors were turned, the doors of the inner house, the most holy place, and the doors of the temple, all of gold. So all the work King Solomon had done in the house of the Lord was complete. Then Solomon took the holy things which David his father had given, the silver and the gold and all the vessels, and put them in the storehouses of the house of the Lord. Chapter 8. Then Solomon sent for all the responsible men of Israel, and all the chiefs of the tribes, and the heads of families of the children of Israel, to come to him in Jerusalem to take the ark of the Lord's agreement up out of the town of David, which is Zion. And all the men of Israel came together to King Solomon at the feast, in the month Ethanim, the 7th month. And all the responsible men of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark. They took up the ark of the Lord, and the tent of meeting, and all the holy vessels which were in the tent, all these the priests and the Levites took up. And King Solomon and all the men of Israel who had come together there, were with him before the ark, making offerings of sheep and oxen more than might be numbered. And the priests took the ark of the agreement of the Lord and put it in its place in the inner room of the house, in the most holy place, under the wings of the winged ones. For their wings were outstretched over the place where the ark was, covering the ark and its rods. The rods were so long that their ends were seen from the holy place, in front of the inmost room, but they were not seen from outside, and there they are to this day. There was nothing in the ark but the 2 flat stones which Moses put there at Horeb, where the Lord made an agreement with the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. Now when the priests had come out of the holy place, the house of the Lord was full of the cloud, so that the priests were not able to keep their places to do their work because of the cloud, for the house of the Lord was full of the glory of the Lord. Then Solomon said, O Lord, to the sun you have given the heaven for a living place, but your living place was not seen by men, so I have made for you a living place, a house in which you may be forever present. Then, turning his face about, the king gave a blessing to all the men of Israel, and they were all on their feet together. And he said, Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who himself gave his word to David my father, and with his strong hand has made his word come true, saying, From the day when I took my people Israel out of Egypt, no town in all the tribes of Israel has been marked out by me for the building of a house for the resting place of my name. But I made selection of David to be king over my people Israel. Now it was in the heart of David my father to put up a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to David my father, You did well to have in your heart the desire to make a house for my name, but you yourself will not be the builder of my house, but your son, the offspring of your body, he it is who will put up a house for my name. And the Lord has made his word come true, for I have taken my father David's place on the seat of the kingdom of Israel, as the Lord gave his word, and I have made a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. In it I have made a place for the ark, in which is the agreement which the Lord made with our fathers, when he took them out of the land of Egypt. Then Solomon took his place before the altar of the Lord, all the men of Israel being present, and stretching out his hands to heaven, said, O Lord, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven or on the earth, keeping faith and mercy unchanging for your servants, while they go in your ways with all their hearts. And you have kept the word which you gave to your servant David, my father. With your mouth you said it, and with your hand you have made it come true this day. So now, O Lord, the God of Israel, let your word to your servant David, my father, come true, when you said, you will never be without a man to take his place on the seat of the kingdom of Israel before me. If only your children give attention to their ways, walking before me as you have done. So now, O God of Israel, it is my prayer that you will make your word come true which you said to your servant David, my father. But is it truly possible that God may be housed on earth? See, heaven and the heaven of heavens are not wide enough to be your resting place, how much less this house which I have made. Still, let your heart be turned to the prayer of your servant, O Lord God, and to his prayer for grace. Give ear to the cry and the prayer which your servant sends up to you this day, that your eyes may be open to this house night and day, to this place of which you have said, my name will be there, hearing the prayer which your servant may make, turning to this place. Give ear to the prayers of your servant, and the prayers of your people Israel, when they make their prayers, turning to this place. Give ear in heaven your living place, and hearing, have mercy. If a man does wrong to his neighbor, and is to take an oath, and comes before your altar to take his oath in this house, then let your ear be open in heaven, and be the judge of your servants, giving your decision against the wrongdoer, so that punishment for his sins may come on his head, and, by your decision, keeping from evil him who has done no wrong. When your people Israel are overcome in war, because of their sin against you, if they are turned to you again, honoring your name, making prayers to you and requesting your grace in this house, then give ear in heaven, and let the sin of your people Israel have forgiveness, and take them back again into the land which you gave to their fathers. When heaven is shut up and there is no rain, because of their sin against you, if they make prayers with their faces turned to this place, honoring your name and turning away from their sin when you send trouble on them, then give ear in heaven, so that the sin of your servants, and of your people Israel, may have forgiveness, when you make clear to them the good way in which they are to go, and send rain on your land which you have given to your people for their heritage. If there is no food in the land, or if there is disease, or if the fruits of the earth are damaged through heat or water, locust or worm, if their towns are shut in by their attackers, whatever trouble, whatever disease there may be, whatever prayer or request for your grace is made by any man, or by all your people Israel, whatever his trouble may be, whose hands are stretched out to this house, give ear in heaven your living place, acting in mercy, and give to every man whose secret heart is open to you, the reward of all his ways, for you, and you only, have knowledge of the hearts of all the children of men, so that they may give you worship all the days of their life in the land which you gave to our fathers. And as for the man from a strange land, who is not of your people Israel, when he comes from a far country because of the glory of your name, for they will have news of your great name and your strong hand and your outstretched arm, when he comes to make his prayer, turning to this house, give ear in heaven your living place, and give him his desire, whatever it may be, so that all the peoples of the earth may have knowledge of your name, worshipping you as do your people Israel, and that they may see that this house which I have put up is truly named by your name. If your people go out to war against their attackers, by whatever way you may send them, if they make their prayer to the Lord, turning their faces to this town of yours and to this house which I have made for your name, give ear in heaven to their prayer and their cry for grace, and see right unto them. If they do wrong against you, for no man is without sin, and you are angry with them and give them up into the power of those who are fighting against them, so that they take them away as prisoners into a strange land, far off or near, and if they take thought, in the land where they are prisoners, and are turned again to you, crying out in prayer to you in that land, and saying, we are sinners, we have done wrong, we have done evil, and with all their heart and soul are turned again to you, in the land of those who took them prisoners, and make their prayer to you, turning their eyes to this land which you gave to their fathers, and to the town which you took for yourself, and the house which I made for your name, then give ear to their prayer and to their cry in heaven your living place, and see right unto them, answering with forgiveness the people who have done wrong against you, and overlooking the evil which they have done against you. Let those who made them prisoners be moved with pity for them, and have pity on them, for they are your people and your heritage, which you took out of Egypt, out of the iron fireplace. Let your eyes be open to your servants' prayer for grace and to the prayer of your people Israel, hearing them when their cry comes to you. For you made them separate from all the peoples of the earth, to be your heritage, as you said by Moses your servant, when you took our fathers out of Egypt, O Lord God. Then Solomon, after making all these prayers and requests for grace to the Lord, got up from his knees before the altar of the Lord, where his hands had been stretched out in prayer to heaven, and, getting on his feet, he gave a blessing to all the men of Israel, saying with a loud voice, Praise be to the Lord who has given rest to his people Israel, as he gave them his word to do. Every word of all his oath, which he gave by the hand of Moses his servant, has come true. Now may the Lord our God be with us as he was with our fathers. Let him never go away from us or give us up, turning our hearts to himself, guiding us to go in all his ways, to keep his orders and his laws and his decisions, which he gave to our fathers. And may these my words, the words of my prayer to the Lord, be before the Lord our God day and night, so that he may see right unto his servant and to his people Israel, day by day as we have need, so that all the peoples of the earth may see that the Lord is God, and there is no other. Then let your hearts be without sin before the Lord our God, walking in his laws and keeping his orders as at this day. Now the king, and all Israel with him, were making offerings before the Lord. And Solomon gave to the Lord for peace offerings 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel kept the feast of the opening of the Lord's house. The same day the king made holy the middle of the open square in front of the house of the Lord, offering there the burnt offering and the meal offering and the fat of the peace offerings. For there was not room on the brass altar of the Lord for the burnt offerings and the meal offerings and the fat of the peace offerings. So Solomon and all Israel with him, a very great meeting, for the people had come together from the way into Hamath to the river of Egypt, kept the feast at that time before the Lord our God, for 2 weeks, even 14 days. And on the 8th day he sent the people away, and, blessing the king, they went to their tents full of joy and glad in their hearts, because of all the good which the Lord had done to David his servant and to Israel his people. Chapter 9. Now when Solomon came to the end of building the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all Solomon's desires, which he had in mind were effected, the Lord came to him again in a vision, as he had done at Gibeon, and the Lord said to him, Your prayers and your requests for grace have come to my ears. I have made holy this house which you have made, and I have put my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there at all times. As for you, if you will go on your way before me, as David your father did, uprightly and with a true heart, doing what I have given you orders to do, keeping my laws and my decisions, then I will make the seat of your rule over Israel certain forever, as I gave my word to David your father, saying, You will never be without a man to be king in Israel. But if you are turned from my ways, you or your children, and do not keep my orders and my laws which I have put before you, but go and make yourselves servants to other gods and give them worship, then I will have Israel cut off from the land which I have given them, and this house, which I have made holy for myself, I will put away from before my eyes, and Israel will be a public example, and a word of shame among all peoples. And this house will become a mass of broken walls, and everyone who goes by will be overcome with wonder at it and make whistling sounds, and they will say, Why has the Lord done so to this land and to this house? And their answer will be, Because they were turned away from the Lord their God, who took their fathers out of the land of Egypt. They took for themselves other gods and gave them worship and became their servants. That is why the Lord has sent all this evil on them. Now at the end of 20 years, in which time Solomon had put up the 2 houses, the house of the Lord and the king's house, Hiram, king of Tyre, had given Solomon cedar trees and cypress trees and gold, as much as he had need of. King Solomon gave Hiram 20 towns in the land of Galilee. But when Hiram came from Tyre to see the towns which Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. And he said, "What sort of towns are these which you have given me, my brother?" So they were named the land of Kabul, to this day. And Hiram sent the king 120 talents of gold. Now, this was the way of Solomon's system of forced work for the building of the Lord's house and of the king's house, and the Milo and the wall of Jerusalem and Megiddo and Gezer. Now Pharaoh, king of Egypt, came and took Gezer, burning it down and putting to death the Canaanites living in the town, and he gave it for a bride offering to his daughter, Solomon's wife. And Solomon was the builder of Gezer and Beth-Horon the lower, and Balath and Tamar in the wasteland, in that land, and all the store towns and the towns which Solomon had for his war carriages and for his horsemen, and everything which it was his pleasure to put up in Jerusalem and in Lebanon and in all the land under his rule. As for the rest of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not children of Israel, their children who were still in the land, and whom the children of Israel had not been able to put to complete destruction, them did Solomon put to forced work, to this day. But Solomon did not put the children of Israel to forced work. They were the men of war, his servants, his captains, and his chiefs, captains of his war carriages and of his horsemen. These were the chiefs of the overseers of Solomon's work, 550, in authority over the people who did the work. At that time Solomon made Pharaoh's daughter come up from the town of David to the house which he had made for her. Then he made the Milo 3 times in the year. It was Solomon's way to give burnt offerings and peace offerings on the altar he had made to the Lord, causing his fire offering to go up on the altar before the Lord. And King Solomon made a sea force of ships in Ezion-Geber, by Aloth, on the Red Sea, in the land of Edom. Hiram sent his servants, who were experienced seamen, in the sea force with Solomon's men. And they came to Ophir, where they got 420 talents of gold, and took it back to King Solomon. Chapter 10. Now the Queen of Sheba, hearing great things of Solomon, came to put his wisdom to the test with hard questions. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels weighted down with spices, and stores of gold and jewels. And when she came to Solomon, she had talk with him of everything in her mind. And Solomon gave her answers to all her questions. There was no secret which the king did not make clear to her. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Solomon, and the house which he had made, and the food at his table, and all his servants seated there, and those who were waiting on him in their places, and their robes, and his wine servants, and the burnt offerings which he made in the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. And she said to the king, "The account which was given to me in my country of your acts and your wisdom was true. But I had no faith in what was said about you, till I came and saw for myself, and now I see that it was not half the story. Your wisdom and your wealth are much greater than they said. Happy are your wives, happy are these your servants whose place is ever before you, hearing your words of wisdom. May the Lord your God be praised, whose pleasure it was to put you on the seat of the kingdom of Israel, because the Lord's love for Israel is eternal. He has made you king, to be their judge in righteousness." And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and a great store of spices and jewels. Never again was such a wealth of spices seen as that which the Queen of Sheba gave King Solomon. And the sea force of Hiram, in addition to gold from Ophir, came back with much sandalwood and jewels. And from the sandalwood the king made pillars for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house, and instruments of music for the makers of melody. Never has such sandalwood been seen to this day. And King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all her desire, whatever she made request for, in addition to what he gave her freely from the impulse of his heart. So she went back to her country, she and her servants. Now the weight of gold which came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents, in addition to what came to him from the business of the traders, and from all the kings of the Arabians, and from the rulers of the country. And Solomon made 200 body covers of hammered gold, every one having 600 shekels of gold in it. And he made 300 smaller body covers of hammered gold, with 3 pounds of gold in every cover, and the king put them in a house of the woods of Lebanon. Then the king made a great ivory seat, plated with the best gold. There were 6 steps going up to it, and the top of it was round at the back. There were arms on the 2 sides of the seat, and 2 lions by the side of the arms, and 12 lions were placed on the one side and on the other side on the 6 steps. There was nothing like it in any kingdom. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the woods of Lebanon were of the best gold. Not one was of silver, for no one gave a thought to silver in the days of King Solomon. For the king had Tarshish ships at sea with the ships of Hiram. Once every 3 years the Tarshish ships came with gold and silver and ivory and monkeys and peacocks. And King Solomon was greater than all the kings of the earth in wealth and in wisdom. And from all over the earth they came to see Solomon and to give ear to his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And everyone took with him an offering, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and robes, and coats of metal, and spices, and horses, and beasts of transport, regularly year by year. And Solomon got together war carriages and horsemen. He had 1,400 carriages and 12,000 horsemen, whom he kept, some in the carriage towns and some with the king at Jerusalem. And the king made silver as common as stones in Jerusalem, and cedars like the sycamore trees of the lowlands in number. And Solomon's horses came from Egypt and from Cu. The king's traders got them at a price from Cu. A war carriage might be got from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. They got them at the same rate for all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. Chapter 11. Now a number of strange women were loved by Solomon, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, the nations of which the Lord had said to the children of Israel, "You are not to take wives from them, and they are not to take wives from you, or they will certainly make you go after their gods." To these Solomon was united in love. He had 700 wives, daughters of kings, and 300 other wives. And through his wives his heart was turned away. For it came about that when Solomon was old, his heart was turned away to other gods by his wives, and his heart was no longer true to the Lord his God as the heart of his father David had been. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Milcom, the disgusting god of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord, not walking in the Lord's ways with all his heart as David his father did. Then Solomon put up a high place for Chemosh, the disgusting god of Moab, in the mountain before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the disgusting god worshipped by the children of Ammon. And so he did for all his strange wives, who made offerings with burning of perfumes to their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had twice come to him in a vision, and had given him orders about this very thing, that he was not to go after other gods. But he did not keep the orders of the Lord. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Because you have done this, and have not kept my agreement and my laws, which I gave you, I will take the kingdom away from you by force and will give it to your servant. I will not do it in your lifetime, because of your father David, but I will take it from your son. Still I will not take all the kingdom from him, but I will give one tribe to your son, because of my servant David, and because of Jerusalem, the town of my selection." So the Lord sent Hadad the Edomite to make trouble for Solomon. He was of the king's seed in Edom. And when David had sent destruction on Edom, and Joab, the captain of the army, had gone to put the dead into the earth, and had put to death every male in Edom. For Joab and all Israel were there 6 months till every male in Edom had been cut off. Hadad, being still a young boy, went in flight to Egypt, with certain Edomites, servants of his father, and they went on from Midian and came to Paran, and, taking men from Paran with them, they came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave him a house and gave orders for his food and gave him land. Now Hadad was very pleasing to Pharaoh, so that he gave him the sister of his wife, Tahpenes the queen, for his wife. And the sister of Tahpenes had a son by him, Genubath, whom Tahpenes took care of in Pharaoh's house, and Genubath was living in Pharaoh's house among Pharaoh's sons. Now when Hadad had news in Egypt that David had been put to rest with his fathers, and that Joab, the captain of the army, was dead, he said to Pharaoh, "Send me back to my country." But Pharaoh said to him, "What have you been short of while you have been with me, that you are desiring to go back to your country?" And he said, "Nothing, but even so, send me back." And God sent another troublemaker, Rezin, the son of Eliada, who had gone in flight from his lord, Hadadezer, king of Zobah. He got some men together and made himself captain of a band of outlaws, and went to Damascus and became king there. He was a trouble to Israel all through the days of Solomon. And this is the damage Hadad did. He was cruel to Israel while he was ruler over Edom. And there was Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Zeradah, a servant of Solomon, whose mother was Zeruiah, a widow, and his hand was lifted up against the king. The way in which his hand came to be lifted up against the king was this: Solomon was building the Millo and making good the damaged parts of the town of his father David, and Jeroboam was an able and responsible man, and Solomon saw that he was a good worker and made him overseer of all the work given to the sons of Joseph. Now at that time, when Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite came across him on the road. Now Ahijah had put on a new robe, and the two of them were by themselves in the open country. And Ahijah took his new robe in his hands, parting it violently into 12. And he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of the parts, for this is what the Lord has said, See, I will take the kingdom away from Solomon by force, and will give 10 tribes to you. But 1 tribe will be his, because of my servant David, and because of Jerusalem, the town which, out of all the tribes of Israel, I have made mine, because they are turned away from me to the worship of Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the Ammonites. They have not been walking in my ways or doing what is right in my eyes or keeping my laws and my decisions as his father David did. But I will not take the kingdom from him. I will let him be king all the days of his life, because of David my servant, in whom I took delight, because he kept my orders and my laws. But I will take the kingdom from his son, and give it to you. And 1 tribe I will give to his son, so that David my servant may have a light forever burning before me in Jerusalem, the town which I have made mine to put my name there. And you I will take, and you will be king over Israel, ruling over whatever is the desire of your soul. And if you give attention to the orders I give you, walking in my ways and doing what is right in my eyes and keeping my laws and my orders as David my servant did, then I will be with you, building up for you a safe house, as I did for David. And I will give Israel to you, so that I may send trouble for this on the seed of David, but not forever. And Solomon was looking for a chance to put Jeroboam to death, but he went in flight to Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt till the death of Solomon. Now the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all he did, and his wisdom, are they not recorded in the book of the Acts of Solomon? And the time Solomon was king in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. And Solomon went to rest with his fathers, and was put into the earth in the town of David his father. And Solomon went to rest with his fathers, and Rehoboam his son became king in his place.